This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We're learning more tonight about a student database in the Pembina Trails School Division that was stolen last year by hackers. It was all an attempt to extort more than $1.5 million. Personal information of students, teachers, and families was taken and released in a shadowy part of the internet. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
Colleen Peluso has 3 children in the Pembina Trails School Division. Some of their personal data, along with information belonging to thousands of other students, as well as staff, was stolen in December in a cybersecurity breach.
It's scary. A lot of parents have done a lot to keep their kids safe.
Pembina Trails confirms it was a ransomware attack by a group known as Reseda. The division says a ransom was demanded to get the data back from the hackers, but it wasn't paid. At some point, the hackers also tried to sell the data online for 15 Bitcoin, the equivalent of more than $1.5 million Canadian dollars. When that sale didn't happen, some of the stolen information was released on the dark web, a part of the internet you can't access with a traditional web browser. A U.S.-based cyber intelligence company called Venerix investigated to learn more. The company has no connection to Pembina Trails. It found the division's stolen data on the dark web. The company put together a report on its website which included pixelated images of the stolen information for anyone to learn more about the hack. Luciana Obregon with Venerix says the information is no longer for sale.
If they're not able to sell it, they basically make it available for anybody to go in and do whatever they want with it.
Manitoba Teacher Society President Nathan Martindale says teacher and student data should never be compromised. He says there's no doubt this will cause our members extreme psychological stress. Initially, the division said the information that was compromised dated back to 2014, but it's since learned a backup database was also accessed with information dating back to 2011. The Winnipeg Police Service's Financial Crimes Unit is investigating.
You already need to be very keenly aware of what's going on with this information.
While she's not happy about it, Peluso says cybersecurity breaches have become all too common. The division hired its own cybersecurity company to investigate. It's offering 3 years of credit monitoring at no cost to current and former staff and is encouraging families to stay vigilant. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Seniors living at a former nonprofit complex are breathing a sigh of relief today. Rent relief. Roughly 100 residents at the former Lions Place building on Portage Avenue will continue to have their rent subsidized for the next 3 years. CBC's Matt Humphrey has the latest.
It was life-changing news for dozens of seniors like Gerald Brown.
You could just feel a sigh go through the room, like a load lifted off people's shoulders, and they were saying, really? 3 years? Wonderful.
Brown has lived in the former Lions Place building for 10 years. Now he knows his rent is staying the same.
Stop the sale!
People were angry in 2023 when the publicly run seniors building was sold to a for-profit Alberta company, so the Conservative government agreed to subsidize seniors' rents. But that arrangement ended in March, and tenants like Brown were worried for their rents and amenities.
Before, they were provided by the Lions because that was part of their mandate, part of their mission. That mission doesn't apply here because this is a commercial enterprise.
Now, NDP Housing Minister Bernadette Smith says rents will be subsidized for 3 more years.
Unfortunately, the former government didn't, negotiate to purchase that building. We're put in a position where we have to, support these folks, and that's exactly what we've done.
Smith says legislation is incoming which would require an owner to get permission before selling social housing.
We would, grant that to a seller if they were to keep that deeply affordable.
After living here for 6 years, Norm Pohl is relieved to have at least another 3.
I'm very glad that we've got an extension that our rents will stay within the provincial guidelines.
Tom Sims' mother has lived in the building for 25 years.
The building should have never been sold in the first place. The federal government and the provincial government should work together to buy back this building.
Sims says such a building is rare because it's full of amenities used primarily by the senior tenants.
We should convert it into one of the most innovative, facilities in the country.
The housing minister says conversations about the future of the building will happen in 3 years. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
RCMP have made more arrests after a string of armed break-ins in rural Manitoba. The incidents happened at a number of farms in North Norfolk, west of Portage La Prairie last weekend. Video showed armed suspects entering properties with a truck and stealing items. A 17-year-old girl was arrested previously. Mounties say law enforcement then executed a search warrant at a home in Sandy Bay, Ojibwe First Nation. A number of stolen items were recovered, including an ATV and a Dodge truck. Officers also seized meth and thousands of dollars. An 18-year-old man and 16-year-old youth are facing a list of charges, and police are still searching for a 20-year-old man in connection. He was shot dead by police 5 years ago, and now we're hearing more about some of the 22-year-old's final moments alive. Stuart Kevin Andrews was one of 3 Indigenous people killed by police in the span of 10 days. An inquest into his death is now underway, and today court heard what happened just before officers fired. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the details.
An officer involved in a police shooting 5 years ago was grilled Friday about whether his use of force was appropriate. This is day 3 of the inquest into the death of 22-year-old Stuart Kevin Andrews, taking place here at the Winnipeg Courthouse. Court heard that police got called to the Maples neighborhood for an armed robbery and assault in April 2020. When Constable Courtney Olson and another officer arrived, they found Andrews and a 16-year-old teen in a back lane. Olson says the teen fled, and Andrews started swinging a bar at the officers and the police dog they had with them. The constable says Andrews started charging at him. That's when he fired 5 shots at Andrews. We're trained to stop the threat, and we're firing until the threat, is no longer a threat. So, because Mr. Andrews is charging at me, I'm taking that sidestep to move out of the way, firing towards Mr. Andrews, and I don't know how many rounds were impacting Mr. Andrews. The family's lawyer, Martin Pollock, asked why Olson didn't use any of the other tools at his disposal, like a stun gun or pepper spray. Olson says he felt like he was in danger and didn't have time for other measures of force. At no time did you indicate when you said stop police that you were investigating a crime to impede their free movement of that lane, did you? Pollock told court Olson wasn't sure Andrews and the teen were the suspects and said the constable could have better communicated what the officers were doing in the area. He also suggested that Andrews was swinging a pipe to protect himself from the dog. The inquest is expected to continue Monday with a second constable who was at the scene giving his testimony about what he saw the night of the incident. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province is making changes to how it tracks cardiac surgery waitlist deaths. It comes after a Manitoba woman died while waiting for a triple bypass. Her family want people to be told how long their wait is and if there are openings elsewhere. Premier Wab Kinew says now cardiac patients will be provided a targeted wait time. He says the province is also going to track deaths.
We are going to track unfortunately, people who pass away while waiting, and we'll be reporting that. It looks like quarterly, and there'll also be a bit of work to determine whether, and I think this is where the matter really comes to a head, whether being on a wait list contributed to that outcome.
Kinew says they are beginning with cardiac patients because of that case and may move on to tracking waitlist deaths at cancer care. A large Canadian flag that was recently draped over the front of the Manitoba Legislature is being repaired again. The 9 by 18 meter flag belonged to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Football Club and was used on the field during the national anthem. The NDP government borrowed the flag last month and used it as a symbol of resistance to tariffs threatened by Donald Trump. It suffered some tears, was taken down, repaired, and put back up again. Now winds have damaged it once more. The Premier says the government will buy the Bombers a new flag and use this current one for public events. Well, it was a beautiful day to get outside and enjoy some nice weather. Let's bring in Ethan Williams for a look at those double-digit temperatures.
Well, Brittany, some of us finally cracking that 20-degree mark. Melita especially hitting 22 Friday. I do believe that is the first 20-degree temperature that we've seen in Manitoba so far this spring. And hey, even though, other parts of the province maybe didn't crack over that 20-degree mark, it was still a beautiful day into the mid-teens for many locations across the province, albeit with a little bit of some cloud cover, some breezy conditions at times, and even some rain starting to show up through portions of the inner lake and through the parklands. We are expecting, though, that cloud will start clearing away as we go through the overnight, and we'll be waking up to a very warm 6 degrees under those mostly sunny skies. Getting into the afternoon, those winds picking up just a little bit, but overall not too bad wind-wise. Mostly sunny skies as we get into the noon hour. A little bit of cloud cover building in by the time we get into the afternoon, but another day with temperatures into those mid-teens. However, there is some messy weather on the way, Brittany, for some of us. I'll tell you about that in your full forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ethan. Healthcare, cost of living, education, what matters most to voters in the North? We take a look and hear what Manitobans have to say straight ahead. Federal election candidates in Manitoba's largest riding are racing the clock to reach voters. With a short campaign, they're spending days on the road, and voters want to know what each candidate and party is promising. Sunuta Radawake has more.
For the next few weeks, This is the life of federal election candidates in Manitoba's largest riding, traveling to some of Manitoba's most remote communities. Rebecca Chartrand is the Liberal candidate.
We're boots on the ground, literally. So we've been in our vehicle driving to every community that we can get to.
She ran in the 2015 election and came within 1,000 votes of incumbent Nikki Ashton. Chartrand is focusing on the Liberal government's track record, like the $55 million health center in Pimicikamak that opened in 2023. She's also promising to reduce the cost of living, a top priority for Leonard Ross, who wants to eat healthy, but says that's becoming increasingly unaffordable.
It's very pricey, I should say, you know. It's pricey, and then the inflation goes up very much so, you know, we can't really do anything about it as a community.
Nikki Ashton and her team wants to visit 90% of the communities in the riding. The Thompson local has held the seat for 17 years.
I've been so proud to be able to fight for my home. This is where I'm from, born and raised. This is where I live with my family. And I see a lot of the challenges firsthand.
Ashton is also promising to improve healthcare in the north. That's welcome news for Erica Halcrow. She regularly takes the 8-hour drive from Pimicikamak to Winnipeg for medical appointments.
I go out for medical, and a lot of times I have issues, and I can't address them right away, and I really don't know where to address them.
Halcrow says it's important that people go out and vote. But turnout in this riding was only 36% last election. Dylan Young hopes that will go up. He's running for the People's Party of Canada. He's campaigning on a complete moratorium on immigration to Canada.
We're seeing a decline in people who really understand what it is to be Canadian. And of course, that varies among different people. But a lot of people nowadays believe that there is no such thing as a Canadian.
But Raymond Robinson says he feels forgotten as a Canadian.
To all of you out there that are going around campaigning, we are people too. First Nations are people.
People he says deserve attention from federal leaders. CBC News attempted to contact the Conservative candidate Lachlan Dinardi multiple times, but did not receive a response. Sanuda Ranawake, CBC News, Pimicikamak, Cree Nation.
Liberal leader Mark Carney took time away from the campaign trail to meet with his cabinet committee on Canada-U.S. relations and national security. The Prime Minister later told reporters discussions had focused on how American tariffs are affecting Canada already.
In the last week, there have been a lot of developments in terms of U.S. tariff policy, reactions from others, including China, really marked tightening in financial conditions, a slowing, the initial signs of slowing in the global economy, impacts that we're starting to see unfortunately in the Canadian economy, particularly in the Canadian labour market.
Carney says he gave officials instructions to prepare the next government for negotiations with the U.S. after the federal election. Markets have been in turmoil in recent weeks, with U.S. President Donald Trump repeatedly changing course. As of now, there are still 25% tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and automobile imports to the U.S. Today, Pierre Poilievre was talking about his party's economic plan, but Poilievre is facing criticism from within his own party that he should refocus the campaign instead on the threat from Donald Trump.
Liberals and lobbyists want me to stop talking about high food prices. Well, I'm not going to do that, because single mothers shouldn't be going to bed hungry, worried about how they're going to feed their kids in the morning. They want me to stop talking about the doubling housing costs during the lost Liberal decade. I'm not going to stop talking about that. They want me to stop talking about the rampaging crime that's overtaking our streets and the overdose crisis Liberals caused that has taken the lives of 50,000 people. I will not stop talking about that either.
Poilievre was also asked about the views of a local Conservative candidate on abortion. He says there would be no laws passed restricting access to abortion under a Conservative government. Meantime, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh faced repeated reporter questions about what he hopes to achieve in a campaign where he's stopped saying he's running to be Prime Minister. Singh pointed to holding the balance of power in a minority parliament.
We want to make the case for Canadians that Canada works best when one party doesn't have all the power. And when people have voted for New Democrats, they voted for a party and leaders that have gone to Ottawa and fought for them and delivered for them. Because people voted for us, we were able to deliver things like dental care and the first steps towards national pharmacare.
Singh cited other policy achievements by leaders who preceded him. Well, we had a warmer day, but we didn't necessarily see too much of that sunshine, depending on where you were. Let's bring in Ethan Williams now for a look on our forecast. Ethan.
Well, some cloud cover, Brittany, has been the story over the province, especially as we've headed into northern parts of the province. And that is because of this low pressure system, which is going to be bringing some messy weather our way as we head into Saturday overnight. Risk of freezing rain, especially in kind of eastern sections of the north from Gillam through Shamattawa around the Hudson Bay coast. This cold front going to slide through, and that will drop temperatures through the weekend for southern Manitoba, but will keep us on the sunny side. That low, though, pulling down that cold air, and that rain will transition over to snow for many northern locations as we get through the day into Saturday. Then attention turns to southern Manitoba. We're watching a low-pressure system moving in that is going to be bringing some mixed precipitation of our own. Now, most of the models that we're seeing so far actually have been pushing this system a little bit further south. So there is the possibility that by early Sunday and into Monday, this system won't really be impacting us all that much. Nonetheless, a couple of the models still saying that that moisture could push a little bit further north, especially toward the Trans-Canada corridor. But for Winnipeg and southeastern Manitoba, I think we'll be relatively spared by this as that rain changes over to snow as it moves through northwestern Ontario. So again, freezing rain possible in the north, maybe a good 2 to 4 millimeters there. I think this gives us the best estimate of rainfall in the southwest, maybe upwards of 5 to 10 millimeters the further southwest you go. But generally, much of the province not seeing a whole lot of rainfall. As that rain changes over to snow, though, into northern Manitoba, again, this all depends on how much snow we end up getting if it changes over completely, but could be in the range of maybe upwards of 10 centimeters in places like Gillam and Shamattawa as we get into Monday afternoon. And with that low moving in, southern Manitoba especially seeing winds pick up, gusts 60 to maybe 70 kilometers an hour, especially in the Inner Lake as we get through kind of the night here into Saturday, but then things calming down a little bit as we get into Saturday and Sunday as that low starts to move out. So Shadow may need to stay put in the vehicle if you're thinking of taking the dog for a walk. Thanks so much to Annette for sending that great shot into us. Otherwise, though, Saturday, once the winds calm down, a nice afternoon. Temperatures drop with that cold front as we head into Sunday and Monday. And it looks like we will, though, see a little bit of a warm-up. I'll have the details, Brittany, in your full 7-day forecast, which is coming up.
Thank you, Ethan. Well, we have much more to come when we return after this short break. Stay with us. Birdtail Sioux Dakota Nation has a new chief. 25-year-old Traychelle Bunn is the first woman to be elected to the position and also the youngest. She's a former U of M Bisons hockey player and law student, and she founded a half marathon to promote healing around residential schools. She told CBC's Marjorie Dowhouse she's always wanted to give back to her community, and it was elders who asked her to run.
They called upon me and, I answered that call, and it was definitely a surprise that, they wanted me to run and put my name forward. But it was the greatest honor to be asked, and an even greater honor to be elected. So really driven by my community and those who supported me.
You've made history. You're the first woman to be elected to this position in your community. You're also the youngest at 25 years old. I mean, how does that make you feel?
It makes me so excited. I think, as in my previous role as youth chief of the Southern Chiefs organization, I spoke to the importance of youth in leadership. And I think this is a testament to that. I think, our young people today are really leading that way. We're entering those leadership spaces, and our voices really need to be heard, and they deserve to be at every table. And I think my community really spoke to that last night, the way that they voted, that they wanted, someone young and a young voice to lead our people. And it's super inspiring to see other young leaders and other female leaders get into these roles. And I think, I will be the first, but I know that I won't be the last. So I'm excited to blaze this trail, and I'm excited to see all the ones that come behind me.
You have, as you mentioned there, been elected also youth chief of SCO. How do you feel that and your list of accomplishments will help you in this new role leading your community?
Yeah, I think they've been, super supportive of me in my leadership journey, SCO, and then learning from Grand Chief Daniels and the other 32 chiefs of the Southern Chiefs organization over my 2-year term as youth chief of the Southern Chiefs organization. So I think, having those experiences of sitting at the tables and learning from a lot of the different chiefs and their decision-making processes and being guided by them, I think has been really instrumental in my leadership journey. And I'm excited to continue to learn and to continue to develop my leadership skills and to learn with my community and to lead my community with my experiences that I bring to the table.
You've accomplished so much in your 25 years. I mean, how does this compare to everything else that you have accomplished in your life?
Yeah, I think I've said it a lot, but it is really the greatest honor of my life. And this is a great responsibility, and I understand that responsibility, and I'm willing to, uphold it to the greatest respects possible. And it's a tremendous honor, and it really is the honor of my life. And I'm so excited to serve my community and serve my people and give back directly to them as their leader.
So now that you're in this position, I mean, what do you plan to work on right away in your role as chief?
I think a really big thing that a lot of my community members really want is, just accountability and transparency and some structure. I think, getting back to bringing our people together and creating unity in our community, monthly meetings, transparency reports, stuff like that. But most importantly, too, as a young person myself, ensuring that our youth have the resources they need to live a good life and to succeed. And another thing I'm really passionate about is education. So working with the school in my community to make sure that our young people are equipped to chase their dreams.
Is this going to be a little bit of a transition to take on this new role because you were just newly elected, or when will you actually start to be the chief of Birdtail?
Yeah, so there is a little bit of transition. I know some community members have already talked about wanting to, create a big kind of inauguration event for me for, making history, and I welcome that, and I think that's super exciting. But I'm currently in my community today, and I was meeting with my current newly elected council, so I guess the work all kind of starts today.
Polls suggest the federal election is essentially a two-way race between the Liberals and Conservatives. And that's squeezing out other parties like the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, and the Green Party. Ashley Burke has more.
The Liberals are riding high in the polls as the Bloc Québécois and NDP's numbers sink low.
If the Liberals win, just because they're less bad than the alternative, nothing ever changes for the better.
Jagmeet Singh addressing a room full of progressive thinkers at the Broadbent Institute, pitching to vote in more NDP MPs to keep the Liberals from forming a majority government.
Ottawa works best when there's someone there to hold the powerful to account.
You almost made it sound like a Carney win is a foregone conclusion. Do you think the election's over?
Well, I think that there is an important decision for Canadians to make. I think campaigns matter.
Singh looked defeated at his press conference as he continues to face questions about his party's dire polling and his own future. Is this your last election?
I'm focused on the campaign in front of me.
His campaign says all is going well, but some progressive voters in the room don't believe it.
I think instead of coming up with the antidote to Pierre Poilievre's individualist vision, they stuck too close to making the exact same arguments as the Liberals with just a slightly more likable leader.
The NDP's being squeezed because of the concerns everybody has around Donald Trump.
Like Singh, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet is running in his third election and struggling to resonate with Quebecers this time around.
I don't have any concern because I believe that the two-way race will have those parties set apart in Quebec.
The Green Party suffering in the polls too.
It's really tough because even our base, even Greens here in Esquimalt, Saint-Sucre are saying, we really do not want Pierre Poilievre to win this election. And so who will we vote for to keep him out?
The NDP, Bloc Québécois, and Greens have just over 2 weeks to try and break through. They'll have a chance next week to face off against the frontrunners at the leaders' debates. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, the main focus of the federal election campaign appears to be the trade war with the United States. But the leaders of some Canadian communities hardest hit by climate change feel that issue has gone ignored. Dozens of mayors and councillors across the country have signed an open letter calling on federal leaders to take action. CBC's Brett Ruskin has more.
This letter looks at what it calls bold but achievable goals for federal politicians should they get elected during this campaign. It looks at things like a national east-west-north clean energy grid, a national high-speed rail network, increasing the amount of housing available by creating 2 million new energy-efficient and affordable homes, creating a retrofit program to improve and increase the energy efficiency of existing homes, making them easier to cool in the summer, easier to heat in the winter, as well as a climate resiliency and response program and fund to help during the next climate emergency. Canada certainly has seen its share of climate emergencies over the last couple of years, whether it's hurricanes on the east coast, wildfires farther out on the west coast, and likewise, this open letter has signatories all across the country as well. Mayors and councillors who say that the main topic of discussion during this campaign has understandably been the relationship between Canada and the United States, but there should be room made for additional topics of discussion that center around climate change.
This is a perfect opportunity to focus on that other existential threat to communities, to our economy, and to our very lives, which is the threat from climate change. We have taken advantage of this opportunity to draw those matters to the attention of political leaders and to Canadians, that we still have another issue to deal with.
Again, this letter hopes that federal politicians address what it calls the urgent need to act on climate change. It has been a topic of discussion in previous campaigns, previous years, talking about kind of the national discussion around climate change. The signatories to this open letter hope that it once again emerges as one of the main topics of discussion during this ongoing campaign. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
The trade war between the United States and China continues to escalate. China has now raised import taxes on American goods to 125%. That decision was made in response to the U.S. imposing a 145% levy on Chinese goods. Chris Reyes has more on the clash between the world's two largest economies.
The standoff on tariffs between China and the U.S. enters another day, with each side holding its ground. According to CCTV, the Chinese state broadcaster, President Xi Jinping made his first public statement against the tariffs in a meeting with the visiting Spanish Prime Minister in Beijing. He said there are no winners in a trade war, going against the world will only lead to self-isolation. Adding to those comments, China's foreign affairs spokesperson Ling Jian, who urged the U.S. to stop extreme pressure and reckless action, adding that any dialogue must be based on equality, respect, and mutual benefit. At the White House briefing, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that President Trump remains open to negotiations with China, but also gave this warning.
If China continues to retaliate, it's not good for China. The United States of America is the strongest, best economy in the world, as evidenced by the more than 75 countries who have called the administration immediately to cut good deals. So the president wants to do what's right for the American people. He wants to see fair trade practices around the globe, and that's his intention and his goal.
As it stands, the U.S. has a 145% levy on Chinese imports, while China has hiked tariffs on American goods to 125% in response.
If this tariff escalation between China and the U.S. continues, it will result in an 80% reduction between China and U.S. trade. And the ripple effect of that across the board can be catastrophic.
According to the Trump administration, the U.S. has not engaged China since imposing the tariffs. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
A week of tariff tumult on international markets ended with gold up and the U.S. dollar down. Gold, in fact, hit yet another high. The U.S. dollar index, the dollar versus several major currencies, fell to 99.96, its lowest point in 3 years. And the U.S. government bond sell-off continued, but stock markets finished on an upswing after early losses. Amid it all, a new survey suggesting U.S. consumer inflation worries are at their highest since 1981. Heading south for a few weeks, why you may be forced to hand over your fingerprints. More on the new rules that start today when we return. Rule changes at the U.S. border are now in effect. For weeks, they've created apprehension and confusion. Now, for Canadians planning on crossing, they're a concrete reality. The CBC's Linda Ward has the details.
The Alien Registration Act has been in place since 1940, but the executive order issued the day Donald Trump took office, entitled Protecting the American People Against Invasion, requires the Department of Homeland Security to enforce it. The new rule means that Canadian citizens and permanent residents aged 14 and over must now register with the U.S. government if they are going to be in the country for more than 30 days. They must carry one of these. This is the Form I-94. It's an arrival departure record. If you enter by air, most likely you have been automatically registered. If you have a work or a student visa, you're probably covered too. But if you've entered the United States through a land border, most likely you have not been registered. Now, you won't be given any proof when you enter the country as to whether or not you have one of those forms. You need to check. You need to go to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's website, and if it's not there, then you do need to register online before that 30 days is up. There are penalties for failing to register, up to $5,000 in fines and up to 6 months in jail, or perhaps both. Global Affairs Canada has issued a new warning. Expect scrutiny at ports of entry, including of electronic devices. Comply and be forthcoming in all interactions with border authorities. If you're denied entry, you could be detained while awaiting deportation. Border agents have always had the authority to search your personal electronic devices, your belongings, without a warrant. But given this current climate, the concern is that they may be looking a little more closely.
I am a dual citizen, and so I would travel with my U.S. passport. But I have had situations where border guards at the U.S. crossing have asked me why I live in Canada. Is the U.S. not good enough? And from the stories that I've heard, it has definitely ramped up.
Her concerns are not uncommon given the current state of Canada-U.S. relations and the fact that we have seen foreign nationals, including Canadians, who have been detained or denied entry to the United States recently, despite having proper documentation. Linda Ward, CBC News, Toronto.
General Motors will shut down its assembly plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, starting next month. The facility is expected to remain closed until October, when it will reopen with just one shift. This means about 500 workers will lose their jobs. The workers' union described this development as a, quote, crushing blow to hundreds of working families. The union's president says GM must do everything it can to mitigate job losses. Many observers attribute the closure to the impact of U.S. tariffs on Canada's auto industry, but GM says it's responding to market demand and rebalancing inventory. Time now to bring back Ethan Williams for another check on our forecast. Ethan.
Well, a bit of a breezy day for some of us, Brittany, as we've gone through the day here. Keep in mind, these gusts at times were a little bit higher earlier in the day, 50 to 60 kilometers an hour in some parts of the province. And again, we're going to be seeing those winds pick up as we head Friday night into Saturday, although they will come down for us, I think, into Saturday, and we're expecting a fairly nice day. So with those winds picking up overnight, though, cloud cover going to start to continue to be a theme in some places, continue to be a theme throughout the rest of southern Manitoba, but a warm night in that cloud cover and with that wind as well. These temperatures well above the freezing mark for many of us, could be as high as 7 degrees, especially if you're into southeastern Manitoba, and into the north, a fairly warm night as well. A couple of us, especially closer to the Saskatchewan border, sitting above the freezing mark. Here, though, in portions of the north is where we start to see that rain and snow move in, and by 7 a.m. Saturday, we're still looking at some mixed precipitation precipitation and maybe even some freezing rain in areas a little bit closer to the Hudson Bay coast, but that is already transitioning over to snow in western sections as we get toward the noon hour, and then that's fully snow as that moves eastward and gets heavier throughout the day. For southern Manitoba, though, a bit of a gusty start for some of us, but skies mostly sunny and those temperatures jumping up very quickly in the sunshine as we get into the afternoon. Perhaps some of us even breaking over the 20-degree mark as we get a little bit later into the afternoon hours and into the early evening. But those warm conditions, likely something that's going to continue at least for the next couple of days here, especially as we get into tonight and into Saturday. And this is all thanks to the nice ridge in the jet stream that we have here. Still quite a bit of troughing out in eastern Canada where we've seen some chillier temperatures there. But keep in mind that as we're watching that next weather system move in into southern Manitoba and northwestern Ontario as we get into Sunday and Monday, that jet stream pattern starts to break down and we get some cooler air starting to move in. Although I think as we get a little bit later into the week, we're going to be seeing another ridge developing out west, and we should be getting a little bit of warmer air heading our way, sort of a mixed bag in the full forecast. And speaking of that, I will have a full look at your 7-day forecast, Brittany, coming up in a little bit.
Thank you, Ethan. It was supposed to be a wild weekend in the woods with a group of college friends, but they accidentally unleashed an evil force. Evil Dead the Musical is based on the cult classic movie series. The production combines horror, humor, and a lot of camp, and is being performed this weekend. Shannalee Vidal stopped by a rehearsal.
Your life sucks, you know, working as smart's gotta blow. Don't be just a lazy schmo and join us. You'll be dead with no remorse and be strong like a horse. You can even date a corpse if you join us.
My name is Amalia Hickerson. I'm 16 and I'm playing Ash Williams. I've loved this musical since I was in grade 7 and I'm in grade 11 now. And Ash has kind of been one of my dream roles and I never thought I'd get to play him this early on in my life.
No! I'm not gonna join you! Never!
Him and his friends go on a week-long vacation in a cabin in the woods and they break in and it does not go as planned.
Why don't you just accept your fate and join us, Ashley? Join us!
That scene that you performed for us. Come join us. Tell me what was happening.
Well, at that point, my sister Cheryl, who you saw in the cellar, has turned evil and is trying to convince me to join the Deadites.
My name is Tessa Leverett. I am 18 years old and I am in the ensemble. I'm an evil tree, I'm a demon, I'm a customer in every scene, I'm backstage helping with blood, like there's so much going on.
Do you have a soft spot for horror or like, no?
No, I can't get through a horror film.
You will die! Like the others before you. One by one we will take you.
We actually got together as a cast to watch some of the movies, and I'm like kind of in the corner with my headphones, a little scared.
How is it for you being part of the horror?
It's so different when you're behind the scenes making the horror happen. Just being able to play with blood. It's not scary when it's in your hands, but when you're watching other people, when I'm watching my castmates get killed and turned into demons, it's a little scary. But when it happens to you, it's fun.
Try and take a stand, but we have got your hand. What are you talking about?
You're just beaming when you talk about, being a demon and being in this musical. What do you love most about it?
Oh, it's the people. It's truly the people. We're together 6 hours a week for months and months, and just coming and seeing everyone, I've just made lifelong friendships.
Hi, I'm Spencer Payne. I'm the school director here at M2IP.
Well, someone hasn't been watching the Discovery Channel. Everyone knows once Moose gets singing, they never shut up.
We never shut up.
That's it. I'm getting Linda, and we are getting out of here. I just wanted to create a lot of fun, and I don't actually know any more musical that's more fun than a play about kind of zombies, right? Or evil demons. So that's why we chose it. It's campy, fun, it adds elements of puppetry, which is a really good theater skill. It's a great lesson in comedy, and as you can see, the music is really fun.
Why do you keep saying that?
I didn't realize myself that there was a high school version. So I think some people might have been surprised.
Yeah, well, actually, if you listen to the adult version, it's very inappropriate for teenagers. But it was just released this last year, so we might be the first ones in Winnipeg to have a go at it. And I took a read of it, and I think it's actually more fun as a teenager. It takes a lot. It puts it more in our current setting, and it's clean, which is so fascinating, except for, I mean, the blood and the guts and the killing and the chopping limbs off, but you know, yeah.
Fair warning, there's going to be a lot of fake blood on stage. For a more immersive experience, you can sit in the splash zone, but don't worry, that stuff is just water.
We've got your hand, yes, it's true, we've got your hand. Yes, we finally got your hand to join us.
Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Still ahead, Ethan Williams is back with the last check on our forecast. Stay with us. The Winnipeg Jets continued their impressive regular season last night with a 4-0 shutout against the Stars in Dallas.
Carried into the zone by Josh Morrissey. Anderson, Connor shoots and scores, and he's got 40, and it's 4-0 Winnipeg.
That was the Jets' 54th win, which extends their lead in the Western Conference. They are first overall in the NHL and can clinch the top seed in the West with a single point from their final 3 games. The Jets play the Blackhawks in Chicago tomorrow. Well, Winnipeg's annual spring cleaning of dust, dirt, debris scattered across city streets and sidewalks will start Sunday. The 6-week operation involves more than 300 pieces of equipment and about 500 workers. Crews will be clearing streets, bridges, sidewalks, and boulevards, and they'll also collect litter and debris in public parks. Active transportation routes will get done first, and then yard waste will start getting collected every 2 weeks starting April 28th.
Gorgeous Saturday in store for us in Winnipeg, and another nice overnight low, likely above the freezing mark, but things getting closer to seasonal as we head through the rest of the weekend as that weather system moves in. Again, I think for Winnipeg, we're largely unscathed by that. Maybe a few sprinkles of rain as we head a little bit later into Sunday. A few breaks in the cloud for Monday, but still going to be breezy at times, and then we drop slightly below seasonal as we get into Tuesday. A bit of a bump up in temperature for Wednesday, the possibility of some showers or flurries for Thursday before we cloud over on Friday once again. And you can see, Brittany, a few windy days ahead of us as well. Of course, wouldn't be spring in Manitoba with a little bit of wind over these next little while.
Thank you, Ethan. Well, it was an unexpected surprise for people arriving in our city today. A beaver, a polar bear, and even a llama hanging out at Winnipeg's airport. Look at our daily lift. It was mascot madness today at the Winnipeg airport. 11 of the city's most popular mascots took over the hug rub, from Manitoba of the WSO to Winston from the Assiniboine Park. It's part of a collaboration between Tourism Winnipeg and the Airports Authority to showcase the city's best attractions and unique experiences and give visitors a warm welcome to our friendly Prairie City. Well, that's all for us tonight. I hope you enjoy the warm weather tomorrow. I'll see you back here on Monday.